Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at my new favorite team in the Open Master League that I have had massively positive results with. The team consists of a Heatran on the lead running its legacy move of Magma Storm and Stone Edge. We have Kyurem on the save switch with Legacy Glaciate, and I'm running Blizzard instead of Dragon Claw. And as the closer, my brand new level 50 double Legacy Rayquaza with Breaking Swipe and Dragon Ascent. I found this team to be extremely powerful and flexible as I was able to overcome some triple hard counter games. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out the team in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a terrible lead, Heatran into Therian Landorus. Immediate save switch into Kyurem, Landorus is staying in and going for the superpower. Honestly, this is fine. I can tank a superpower, I'm not going to be in mudshot farm down range, so they're forced to switch out into Dialga, and that's exactly what I wanted them to do. The goal of the Kyurem save switch is to check and see, does my opponent have a strong counter to dragon types in the back? Whether that's Dialga, Zacian, Xerneas, and once I bait that out, I can get rid of it with Heatran and let Rayquaza hopefully sweep in the back. So I baited out Dialga, I can fire off the Magma Storm, Dialga gets KO'd, and since they stayed in to throw a move versus Kyurem, my switch clock is up and theirs isn't. So as soon as they send in Landorus, I can bring in Rayquaza and they cannot switch. They go for the Stone Edge, winning CMP over Rayquaza as I go for the Breaking Swipe. I'm going to shield the Stone Edge, but I'm going to get that shield right back as I end up going for the Breaking Swipe. Breaking Swipe will be shielded. Opponent switch timer finally comes up, and in the back they have another counter as they send in Lugia. So my opponent double strong against dragons, and I have double dragon. Sky Attack connects. Rayquaza makes the Dragon Ascent. This will put it into farm down range if they let this through. Opponent knows that, and they respect it with a shield. Now it's all up to Heatran with a shield advantage, trying to clutch this endgame. I'm intentionally over farming so I have enough energy to outpace the Landorus if they send it back in. Stone Edge gets the Lugia low. Lugia is at enough for the Aeroblast, so I will commit a shield. I have to watch for the switch. In comes Landorus, but it's met with a loaded Magma Storm. Magma Storm into the Landorus, picks up the knockout. All that's left in the back is the 1 HP Lugia, and against all odds, we beat a triple hard counter team. Picking up a positive lead in the next match, Heatran into Ho-Oh. Even though that is a winning matchup for Stone Edge Heatran, I'm not going to be staying in the lead. The reason being is I need to check and see if they have a response to dragon types. So I send in Kyurem, go for the Glaciate, and the Ho-Oh is staying in. This is now a debuffed Sacred Fire, so I'm going to be able to tank this. I can let that through. My opponent continues to stay in. And if they try and go for the farm down, I'm going to make it to a second Glaciate, which will either get me switch advantage or shield advantage. My opponent commits the shield. They are now 2 stages debuffed, so I'm just going to send in the Heatran here and just tank the double debuffed move. Sacred Fire connects. It's my turn to get debuffed. I'm looking for the resistant Fire Spin farm down, and I get it. Opponent has Groudon in the back. I'm going to send in Rayquaza, and in the back, they have Zacian. And this situation right here is exactly why you want Dragon Ascent. Previously, this would just be game over, but Dragon Ascent gives Rayquaza win cons it didn't have before. We go straight for the Dragon Ascent, get that Zacian out of here, and all they have left is the Groudon. Rayquaza is debuffed, so I will commit the shield here as they fire off the Precipice Blades. This is their last Pokemon, so I can now apply a debuff with Breaking Swipe that they can never undo for the rest of the match. Breaking Swipe is going to connect, farm it up, switch timer is up, and I have the back-to-back Magma Storms loaded on the Heatran. Magma Storm number 1, looks like the opponent may have force closed the app here, so Magma Storm number 1 will secure the KO. We see a great lead in the next match, Heatran into Dialga. One of my favorite things about Heatran is that it absolutely destroys Dialga, wins all even shielding situations, and even if Dialga does make it to a Draco Meteor in the zeros, Heatran is going to be able to tank that. I fire off the Magma Storm, I'm farming up, and they do have enough for the Draco here. But I can live this, so I don't have to shield. Opponent baits with an Iron Head, and that is even better for me, as now I can overfarm and go for the kill shot with the Magma Storm. Magma Storm is going to get the KO. Opponent sends in Palkia. I'm going to pivot into Kyurem, and I'm really happy that I did, as I'm able to bait out their Steel-type Metagross. Metagross, of course, not a Pokemon that Rayquaza would want to see. So I fire off the Glaciate. Glaciate is resisted, as is all the damage that I'm throwing here. But as my opponent tries to get the farm down, look how much damage Kyurem does. Kyurem is only hitting for resisted damage and nearly KOs the Metagross. At this point, all I have to do is just throw away the Heatran, and I have the game won. My opponent baits again, they get KO'd, in comes the Palkia, and I'm firing off the Stone Edge. Stone Edge will do a lot of damage here. Palkia, not the tankiest, will commit the shield, but even after they shield, you can't shield Dragon Tails, and Rayquaza farms all the way down. We see a bit of a tricky lead in the next match, Heatran into Excadrill. Now you may have noticed Exca can hit this entire team for super effective damage, but honestly, Heatran, as long as you have shields, doesn't do too terribly. My opponent is going to be firing off the Drill Run, I'm going to commit the shield, and then go for one Fire Spin in the Magma Storm, so I end up throwing on good timing. Magma Storm, of course, will be lethal, and the Fire Spins just shred through the glassy Excadrill. Excadrill farming up here. I'm just not able to get the KO with the Fire Spin, but I'm perfectly fine with shielding, getting the farm down, and leaving this matchup with a lot of energy. My opponent is going to send in Ho-Oh. Instead of going for the Stone Edge, I'm going to bank that energy and send in Kyurem. I'm able to make it to the Glaciate here. Glaciate ensures that I can tank whatever they throw. My opponent commits the shield. They're now at 100 energy, so they're forced to throw a move. It doesn't matter what they throw. I can survive it. They go for the Sacred Fire. I'm farming up with the Kyurem. My opponent makes a nice play as they snipe with the Shadow Dragonite. But bad news for the Dragonite, because I saved all this energy on Heatran. I'm going to farm up to 100 energy and go for the Stone Edge. Stone Edge will hit for massive damage. One more Fire Spin gets the KO, and we leave with the Stone Edge loaded. We don't even need Rayquaza for this game as Heatran secures the win. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Heatran into Ho-Oh. Now what I should do in this matchup is go for one Fire Spin and switch, but I end up switching out right away. I was testing out a couple different ways to play matchups, and I definitely prefer the one Fire Spin and switch strategy, as energy on Heatran is just so strong. My opponent is going to tank the Glaciate and switch into Zacian to reset the debuff. Now I do have Blizzard on Kyurem specifically for Zacian switch-ins, but I have already taken some chip damage from the Incinerates, so I just decide, you know what, I'm just going to end up going for the debuff. They go for the Play Rough, that is going to KO even with the debuff, and now I can send in Heatran. I tank a close combat here, even if it's not debuffed, of course it is, but my opponent is actually running Play Rough Wild Charge, so you know what? I can tank 2 debuff Wild Charges, so I'm just going to fully farm down, leave with a massive amount of energy to threaten the Ho-Oh. Opponent gives up switch, and they send in Ho-Oh. I'm firing off the Stone Edge. Stone Edge gets the shield. I should make it to another Stone Edge, so they're forced to throw energy. They go for the Sacred Fire. That's going to KO, and now it's all up to Rayquaza with a shield advantage. And I'm forced to give up one of those shields right now. Opponent goes for the Brave Bird. Rayquaza looking for the farm down and gets it. I know they have a Zacian in the back. Oh, they're running double fairy. It all comes down to this. I have to land the nuke or have a bait shielded. I go for the Dragon Ascent. They commit the shield, and unfortunately, that will be game over. As you can see, the fact that double dragon into double fairy still came down to a 50-50 judgment call, I think shows that this team is extremely strong. Even against a team that is basically built to destroy this one, it still basically came down to a coin flip. We see more fairy types in the next match as we lead Heatran into Zacian. With this matchup, I'll typically throw 7 Fire Spins and then go for the Magma Storm on the CMP tie to the back-to-back close combats. In this matchup as the Heatran, you do not want to throw until they've lowered their defense with the close combat, although in this case they actually go for Wild Charge, so they might be running Wild Charge and Play Rough. Heatran does do pretty well in this matchup. I'm like, you know what, I can take a Wild Charge, but it's actually a 5-head read by my opponent. They had close combat this entire time. They land the close combat, and now they send in Lugia. This is a bit tough. My opponent has 2 counters to dragon types with the Zacian and the Lugia, and I only have dragons in the back. So I'm going to look to farm up with the Kyurem and go for the CMP tie on the Aeroblast, and Glaciate will get the KO. Back in comes Zacian. Zacian farming up, but I'm able to make it to the Glaciate. This will not be lethal, but it will put them in a range where I can potentially farm down with either the Heatran or the Rayquaza. They overfarm quite a bit with the Zacian. Zacian not quite at the back-to-back moves though. Close combat will connect. And now I have an interesting choice to make. Do I just send in Rayquaza anticipating the switch? Yes, I do. And it's a Zamazenta in the back. Zamazenta, often forgotten because everyone's running Zacian, but when it comes back to raids, I will definitely be looking to raid Zamazenta, as it's just an incredibly cool mon. I'm going to shield up. Wasn't quite sure what moveset it was running. It turns out they're running Crunch, and they do get the debuff. But the good news is I'm now going to be able to get a second Breaking Swipe, so they're going to be 2 stages debuffed on their attack. They're going to be firing off another charge move here. Crunch, Rayquaza can handle that very comfortably, get the farm down. Zacian is one off a move, so we're going to catch it onto Heatran, keeping track of the opponent's energy until the very end. And Rayquaza will be able to secure this game with a double resisted, single debuff Breaking Swipe. Picking up a tough lead in the next match, Heatran into Giratina Origin. I have 2 better responses in the back, so I save switch into Kyurem, and my opponent responds with a Charm Primarina. And unfortunately, this is looking like I've queued into double Charm, so basically just hard countered. All my charge moves are resisted here, and my fast moves are double resisted, so this is not a fabulous spot for Kyurem to be in. The good news is I can double debuff them, so even if they do have Hydro Pump, the Hydro Pump is not going to do a ton of damage because its attack has been lowered by 2 stages. So I'm going to be sending in the Heatran here, tanking whatever they throw and looking for the farm down. I'm hoping that it's not double Charm, but people don't really run Primarina with Charm unless they're running a second Charmer. Thankfully, they're not running Hydro Pump. I'm able to get a big farm down. My opponent sends in the Giratina. I'm going for chip damage with the Stone Edge, and then it's Rayquaza time. In comes Rayquaza in the back. It's another Charmer. You've got to be kidding me. But the good news is I have Dragon Ascent. They have to shield this, or this is going to one-shot. Rayquaza going for the Dragon Ascent. Get that Togekiss out of here. Back in comes the Giratina. And now I actually have a chance to win this. This will all come down to a call. Do I end up shielding, expecting them to Shadow Ball, or do I call the bait? I call the bait. Is it the Ominous Wind? It's the Shadow Ball. And unfortunately, that's game over. Picking up a decent lead in the next match, Heatran into Mewtwo. While this isn't a bad matchup whatsoever, again, I'm going to be checking to see with the Kyurem save switch, do they have an answer to Dragon types? And I'm not shielding the first move. A lot of Mewtwo's like to go for a Side Strike and dip, but this one is actually staying in. Previously, I would often shield that for a Side Strike, but then they would send in something like Dialga, and I'd be down a shield in a bit of an uncomfortable situation. And you're going to see here, as the Kyurem, you don't have to shield the first Side Strike to win this matchup. As you're going to see, I'm now shielding debuffed Side Strikes, but that's actually still going to allow me to win this matchup if they play out the 2s. But that's exactly what they're going to do. They're firing off the Side Strike here, I'm shielding, and if they're going to stay in here and play this out, I'm just going to fight for switch. And Kyurem wins the 2s versus Mewtwo. In comes Dialga. I can't get the move, but with alignment, I can put Heatran on Dialga and Rayquaza on Kyogre. And even with them being ahead on energy, I will comfortably make Dragon Ascent before they make the Blizzard. Dragon Ascent KOs Kyogre. In comes Dialga. I probably could have gone for the double Breaking Swipe there, and that's definitely the safer play, but I just really wanted to use Dragon Ascent, I'll be honest. Either way, I'm still going to be able to get the win here. They go for the Draco with Dialga. Heatran able to tank that nicely and make the back-to-back Magma Storms here. Magma Storm number 1 will get them very low, and Magma Storm number 2 will secure the KO. So the opponent tries to fight for switch with Mewtwo in the mid-game, but Kyurem just a monster in the 2s. Hopping into the final match, and we end where we started with a Landorus lead. I save switch into Kyurem. Opponent sends in a Smackdown Tyranitar, and I'm so flustered that I throw on alignment, giving them an entire Smackdown for free. That hurts so much to watch back. Thankfully, even with my terrible charge move timing in this game, I'm still able to make it to a second Glaciate. So they leave on very minimal health here, and they're double debuffed. And the good news is I baited out the Smackdown user, so Rayquaza will not have to face it later. I can send in the Heatran, tank the double debuffed energy. They go for the back-to-back Brutal Swings, and honestly, that's fine. They're going to be sending back in the Landorus, but I'm going to be sending in Shield Advantage Rayquaza. I'm just looking at the top right, watching for them to switch in. Opponent sends in the Landorus. In comes Rayquaza. It's Nihilego in the back. Now, Nihilego is an incredibly cool pick here and does have a good matchup into Rayquaza. But here's where having that shield advantage is so deadly, as Rayquaza up a shield can actually flip this matchup. They go for the rock side, and I'm seeing a win con. I'm going to fully commit to the farm down and just debuff that Landorus more and more and more. I get the full farm down. I'm going to throw one and the Breaking Swipe, and I'm a little worried about them making a move. I had lost track of their energy, so I just end up throwing immediately there just to ensure that they weren't one off a Stone Edge. Breaking Swipe will now make sure they're 2 stages debuffed. I'm going to switch into Heatran to force them to throw. They overfarm, and I make the Magma Storm. Magma Storm into the Landorus, gets the KO, and that is a good game. All in all, I think this team is extremely powerful and a great team to use if you're looking to make a legend push in this final week of Master League. With the team, as I mentioned, I was able to have all positive sets with it today, and it took a bit of time to figure out exactly how I wanted to play the matchups, but man, this team feels flexible, it feels powerful, and I had incredibly positive results with it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is absolutely incredible. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.